A portion of this video is brought to you by Sad Artworks. For as long as I can remember, I've loved games. From my first experience playing Duck Hunt on my mom's old NES or Crash Bandicoot 3 on my babysitter's PlayStation, both around the same time in the late 90s. Of course, I don't expect that to come as a surprise to anyone here either. I mean, I am running a game-focused YouTube channel, aren't I? Despite that fact, and despite my love of games and the art of making them, which has been with me my entire life, I can't say that I really fell in love with the medium until I found indie games. And by that I mean Bastion. Bastion specifically. Okay, so sure, I'll admit that my first foray into indie games did include 3 separate games purchased at the same time on my dad's credit card, but as much as I love Terraria and Amnesia: The Dark Descent, Bastion was what it was always about. I had just downloaded Steam at the request of one of my friends because he was raving about Terraria. Up until this point in my life, the only games I had really been aware of were the ones you would find on store shelves. I didn't realize how vast of a market this really was, even back in 2011. Digital storefronts like Steam were still very curated at the time, and getting an indie game on there was not as easy as it is now. But you know, I had downloaded it specifically to look at this Terraria thing my friend was talking about, so indie games, am I right? And that's when I saw it. Right there on the front page, Bastion, featuring the beautiful painterly art of Gen Z. I had to pick it up. The art style, coupled with the beautiful music and narration of the trailer, drew me in immediately. The rest of the trailer, not so much. Video game trailers are hard to get right. But you know, it got the point across, and it stood out immediately against the sea of AAA titles I was so used to. Nothing really looked as unique as this. Bastion came out right at the beginning of what I'd like to dub the indie game renaissance. Only a couple of years after the release of Braid, right around the same time we were seeing popular indie titles like Super Meat Boy, Limbo, and Fez sweeping the industry. Not to mention the many, many others I frankly wouldn't have time to list here. Eventually, Bastion would even make its way into Humble Indie Bundle 5, putting it on basically every computer on my university campus. Those bundles were a big deal back then, so I guess you could say that Bastion became a sort of recurring thing in my life for quite some time. I knew that when I made this channel, I wanted to talk about Bastion, and the rest of the Supergiant Games catalog while we're at it, but I feel like I might be getting ahead of myself. I really love Bastion, and I really want more people to play it, so, well, let's talk about the game, right? But before we do that, this portion of today's video is brought to you by Sad Artworks. 50% spooky, 50% cute, 100% silly goose. Sad Artworks is a shop started by my friend Sydney in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is where I happen to be from, so her business is one that is very near and dear to my heart. She sells all sorts of things ranging from stickers, tarot cards, enamel pins, and even vegetable-based children's storybooks, all featuring her cute hand-drawn artwork. All of the products on Sad Artworks shop are made with high-quality materials that people are proud to display and which give them the long lives they deserve. I like to put mine on my skateboard helmet so I can display them as I ride around town. Like this one, featuring a little possum and his snack. Whether you're into the cute or the macabre, there's probably something there that you'll enjoy. Remember to check out Sad Artworks store at sadartworks.com. There's a link in the description. And thank you to Sad Artworks for helping make today's video happen. And now, back to Bastion.
Proper story is supposed to start at the beginning. Ain't so simple with this one.
The game opens on the kid, our silent and nameless protagonist, waking up on a pile of floating rubble, some of the few remaining pieces of Sidelandia, his home, now destroyed by a catastrophic event referred to only as the Calamity. He sets off for the Bastion, a safe haven where everyone agreed to go in case of trouble. And that is where our adventure begins. One really cool thing about how the story is told in this game is that it's almost completely delivered by the narrator during gameplay. There are a couple breaks here or there for some extra exposition on a character or two, but aside from that, the story is completely contextual. The narrator delivers story beats and lore exposition while you adventure, always incorporating things from the environment you're in and the actions of the kid. For example, if you decide to take a little break and bust up the environment for a while, the narrator might say something like this.
He cuts down every stab weed like there's gonna be a prize for it.
That also means that there are plenty of opportunities to find cool hidden lore details and extra dialogue hidden behind some options not explicitly given to you as a player. Say you happen upon some people petrified in stone by the Calamity. You have the option to destroy them with your hammer, just like the rest of the environment, and if you do, the narrator will comment on it.
Ronnie always wanted his ashes scattered here.
As a result, the story feels more like a description of what you've chosen to do. This is your story, not one that someone else has written for you to read. Incorporating the story and world building into the dialogue given to you by the narrator as you travel through the game world makes the story a lot more personal. And it has the added benefit of improving the flow of the game. There's no need to stop what you're doing to watch a cutscene or read long walls of text, meaning the flow of the gameplay is never interrupted and the experience remains consistent all the way through. Not to mention how fitting Logan Cunningham's performance is. His voice in Bastion is probably one of the most iconic voice roles in indie game history, if not gaming as a whole. Hell, he even got me playing Dota for a while just because they released an announcer pack featuring his performance as the narrator in Bastion.
Nobody likes to play support, yet everybody likes to win.
It's really good, and rightfully so, having painstakingly worked with the game's sound designer Darren Korb to record over 3,000 voice lines working out of a closet in Korb's New York apartment. Yeah, all of the sound and music for this game was developed in a closet, and it's my favorite video game music, like ever. Starting with Bastion, Darren Korb's music has always been an inspiration to me. I don't tend to go out of my way to listen to video game soundtracks when I'm not playing games. The closest I ever come to that is when I need some instruments to play in the background of Dungeons & Dragons. And yeah, of course the Bastion OST is always my first choice, except when it's Transistor, Pyre, or Hades. Korb's music is the only video game music I've unironically added to my regular listening playlist. I love video game soundtracks, don't get me wrong, but there's just something different about the acoustic frontier trip-hop in Bastion that draws me in, wanting more. Darren Korb is absolutely, without a doubt, my favorite video game composer, and it blows me away to no end that he was able to do such a great job while working out of a closet. Like, come on! Of course, all of this work on the music, sound, narration, and art goes into making this game feel as unique as it does, but none of that would matter if the gameplay didn't support it. Bastion is formatted much the same as many other games of the time, and still many games of today, with a hub world for management of your equipment, stats, and other things, and a level select for progression. The level select screen in Bastion is called the Skyway. This is how you'll be getting around the land of Cylandia, so to speak. Each time you complete a level, you'll be presented with 1 or 2 more levels, along with a proving ground where you can practice your prowess with any given weapon, usually whichever one you've unlocked most recently. Proving grounds present you with a fairly basic challenge based on whatever makes that weapon unique. For example, the challenge for the hammer involves smashing through pieces of the environment under a time limit, and the breaker bow sees you piercing through rows of balloons in as few shots as possible. Complete the challenge and you'll unlock rewards such as upgrade materials and new secret skills to use with that weapon. Most of the time, the proving grounds are purely skill-based, but every now and then you'll find one that's a lot easier if you upgrade your weapon first. Now, I never had to backtrack through the game and grind stuff up in order to complete a challenge or play through new levels and come back later, but there are definitely occasions where you'll want to unlock the upgrade materials you get as the second place prize, so you can come back immediately for first place. The cool thing about these challenge levels is that if you're doing them as they pop up throughout your playthrough, they'll be forcing you to try out and improve the unique aspects of the weapons themselves, along with providing an avenue to upgrade them early on so you don't take any sort of hit to the damage you're dealing in other levels. As for the regular levels, well, they're pretty straightforward. Each one features fights, chases, new enemies, weapons to unlock, interesting story beats. You catch the drift. Bastion is a pretty bog-standard action game. The gameplay is usually fast-paced in some manner and holds your attention, but doesn't necessarily break the mold in any crazy, unexpected ways. However, this is only Supergiant's first project, so as you can imagine, a lot of the little things in this game that aren't incredibly noteworthy here do set up mechanics and features in their future games. Even if you were to skip all the way to Hades and then come back and take a peek at Bastion, you would be able to see evidence of its influence in their most recent works, whether that's just the style and how they're presented, or in how the combat and controls gradually evolve over time. And I will be coming back to cover those in the future, so if you are interested in hearing my thoughts on how these games have evolved over time, check out the little eye in the corner. And if you're watching this before those come out, why not leave a little comment explaining what you think the Calamity is? Wrong answers only. Jumping back to the Bastion is where the game finds a little more complexity. This is the hub world for the game, so you'll be returning here between each level, and each time there will be subtle changes, whether that's the appearance of new decor or new characters and interactable objects. Either way, this is your chance to chat with the characters here and learn more about the world, if you're interested. Rux, the narrator, is never at a loss for words, so if you're really into the background of what's going on in the story, this is where you would find those extra little tidbits. And if that's not enough, the occasional new item that shows up in the Bastion will be interactable, transporting you to who knows where, a place where you'll be faced with wave after wave of enemies. Every time you finish a wave, you'll be rewarded with another piece of the story focused on the background of the kid, or another one of the characters who join you in the Bastion. This wave-based survival mode is just one more cool way the developers found to give exposition on the world and characters without ever slowing down the gameplay. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to deliver the backstory of a character as they adventure through the world normally, since the narrator is meant to be describing everything the kid does as the story unfolds. So including this extra optional level or game mode or whatever you want to call it is kind of the perfect solution. The player gets more of the gameplay they came for, and they're rewarded for it, not just with exposition, but with experience and currency which you can spend in various ways at the Bastion. You see, every time you finish a level, you'll be rewarded with what's called a core. Placing a core in the monument at the Bastion will give the Bastion more power, allowing you to construct or upgrade one of 6 different buildings. Each building will unlock a new feature in the game, such as managing the weapons and skills you have equipped, applying passive bonuses, upgrading weapons, buying items, or even being rewarded for unlocking achievements. However, there is one building that stands out above the rest for me: the Shrine. And for a few reasons. Firstly, Bastion is a pretty straightforward game. It's not like some roguelike with an impossibly high skill ceiling. I wouldn't expect many people to find it to be the most challenging game in existence. But a lot of people out there really like games with a little crunch, something they can really bite down on and struggle with for a while. So, in lieu of wild difficulty settings, Bastion provides the Shrine. Here, you can invoke an array of different idols that raise the difficulty of the game in a variety of ways. Instead of choosing from an easy, medium, hard difficulty setting when you start the game, this is more like being able to construct your own difficulty. Tired of games that just raise the hit points of enemies on higher challenge ratings? Why not invoke O-Lock, turning enemies translucent at random times during which your attacks will pass right through? Or maybe you could invoke the Main, slowing the kid's movement after connecting an attack with an enemy. The options here have a lot of variety, allowing you to really pick and choose the things that you find most compelling. And if you're just a wild and crazy guy, you could absolutely invoke every single one of them. As an added benefit to this, the Shrine also incentivizes you to invoke the idols by rewarding you with bonuses to XP and currency. So if you're really hurting for those extra upgrades, you could challenge yourself and get them this way. What's probably the most noteworthy thing about the Shrine, however, is that this functionality immediately became a staple of Supergiant Games. The ability to invoke higher challenge in return for boosted rewards is present in every single game in their catalog, all the way up to Hades. That, alongside the sheer depth of Supergiant's dialogue systems, are exactly why Supergiant Games are so unique. The presentation in their titles are some of the best I've ever seen. From the art, to the sound, to the stories and the dialogue. Supergiant Games is basically unmatched as far as I'm concerned, but we absolutely cannot discount the innovation happening behind the scenes at the studio. Nobody else in the industry is doing what they're doing, at least not as well as they are, and their systems for dialogue and difficulty started something huge. All the way back in 2011, they were laying the foundations that even their most recent games are still building and expanding on. If I had to choose one developer that inspires me to create and innovate and challenge myself, it would be Supergiant Games. With Bastion, they introduced me to an entire world of new experiences, and it led me to where I am today. It's one massive reason why I pursued computer science through the lens of game development, and it's why the majority of games on this channel are indie titles. So if anybody from Supergiant Games is watching, thank you. And to everybody else, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.